want to do it again real quick? Or?
Yeah, let's do it officially.
Okay, please.
Okay, Kathy McLaren.
Here.
Director Ariki.
Here.
Director Calandry.
Here.
Director Urosic.
Here.
Director Paris.
Here.
Phyllis Stannon.
Here.
Kate White.
Here.
Craig Parton.
Here.
And Matt Knudsen.
Here.
And Peter Thompson.
Here.
Present.
Okay, that brings us to item 3, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Landry.
Motion made by John, second by
Adam.
Adam. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call?
Director McLaren.
Yes.
Director Ariki.
Yes.
Director Calandry.
Yes.
Director Urosic.
Yes.
And Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item 4, public comments for non-agenda items. We will meet everybody. Is there any public comments for non-agenda items? Going once, going twice, gone. We're now on 5 special presentations. There are none. We're now on item 6, the consent calendar. Staff report.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Matt.
Matt.
On page 6 of your agenda packet is a summary of the payment of bills for the month of January, or through January 21st of this year. At the the administrative committee with directors Ariki and Urosic, the suggestion was made to separate out the invoices and payment of those invoices based on whether it is reimbursable or per the budget of the administrative assessments. So you'll see on page 6, we included that. You can see $39,800 of payment of bills is within the budgeted amount. And then we have about $17,355 for expenses that will be reimbursable through application fees and other means. Total amount for this period is $57,156. You can see that we have just under $100,000 in our checking account at the end of December of 2020. And then you also see that our money market account, which holds the replacement water assessments, that balance is $200,423. And be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions, Director?
Yeah, this is Adam. The replacement water assessment balance. Can you tell the board how do we so the money goes there, it sits there until a specific time period during the year where you go and you pay to replace the water that was overpumped?
Yeah, if you recall, last year was the first year that we had the process to where the Watermaster puts in a request to the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association for replacement water based on the funds collected and the quantity of replacement water that those funds go towards.
Mm-hmm.
So that process will take place in the coming months, where the Watermaster will put that request into the association. Then the association evaluates a plan of providing that replacement water, and that's submitted back to the Watermaster. And then the funds are exchanged after that plan is approved.
What is the frequency, the annual frequency? Once a year we do this? Twice a year?
We have it set up for once a year currently.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendars, item A, B, C, and D?
Move to approve, Kathy.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
This is
Derek,
Adam.
I'll second it.
Okay, Derek.
Derek won that one. Derek, second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director
Flanders, a yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion is carried unanimously to approve the consent calendar. We're now on item 7, advisory committee. And James, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well. Thanks.
Great. I would like I believe the memo speaks for itself, and I would like to recommend that as referred to throughout the action items to see the advisory committee's input. If there's any questions, I can refer you to a possible person that would best be to answer any comments or concerns.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're on action items. First is action item A, public hearing to consider proposed changes to the Antelope Valley Watermaster rules and regulations. And I need a motion to open the public hearing.
This is Adam. I move that we open the public hearing.
Okay, motion made by Adam, second by John, I believe.
Yes.
Great. To open the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of opening the public hearing to consider proposed changes to the Antelope Valley Watermaster rules and regulations by roll call vote?
Director McLaren, Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris,
Yes.
and can we get Director McLaren?
Yes.
There we go. I knew you were Kathy.
Okay, motion to open the public hearing passes unanimously. I think we're now to Craig's comment.
Yes. Back at the October 28th board meeting, the staff directed council to consider generating some revisions to the rules and regulations that would allow the Watermaster to recover legal expenses that are incurred in certain applications. Particular reference was made to storage agreements, transfers, new or replacement water applications, small pumper qualifications. We came back at the December 2nd special meeting with a memo and a proposed recommendation. At that time, the board directed us to post the proposed amendment to the rules and regulations for 30 days of comment, which was done, and now it's before the board again for adoption. I'm very mindful of the comments of the advisory committee. I wanted to address those. The advisory committee made the observation that all legal fees should be paid by the applicant rather than on a case-by-case basis, which we recommend in the amendment to the rules and regs. We do think continuing to maintain flexibility in how we operate in terms of recovering legal expenses is important. And we would recommend that the resolution be adopted as framed. There's at least a couple of reasons to maintain that flexibility. One is just a simple equity fairness issue. It may not, and I emphasize may not, be fair to impose all the legal expense on the first applicant who raises a unique legal issue or complex issue. and we'd like to retain the flexibility to come to this board on a case-by-case basis to determine whether indeed all the legal expense should be paid. We'd just like to have the flexibility to not necessarily require of every first applicant that brings a unique legal question to impose the entire expense and burden of paying legal costs on them. So we think equity and fairness argues for retaining some flexibility with the Watermaster staff and general counsel to bring recommendations to you about costs. I very much appreciate the comments of the advisory committee. I understand their concern. It's absolutely reasonable to want to impose the costs that are being generated for unique benefit. But I would just ask, we've considered that and would ask the board to consider adopting the resolution as it is to provide the flexibility to council in our recommendations to the board. So those are the comments on this. The resolution is on page 45. The short 2-page memo, I think, got routed around separately. The one on page 43 drops off a page, but it's a very short amount of commentary. The memo is very basic and straightforward, and I think the resolution is too. That reimbursement of all the costs that we incur and recommend be paid, that those be approved as a prerequisite to the Watermaster approving an application. So there has some teeth that we can get this paid, reasonably paid before signing off on the approved application. And just in terms of history on this, and then I'll defer to the public who may want to comment. We had a very complicated transfer application that involved some unique costs, and we did not have in place a reimbursement provision. So now that we have that provision, or will hopefully have that after this board votes, we can address those kinds of unique situations. That was a transfer where one of the parties did not have a production right, and we had to do some significant negotiating and fact-finding, and there was substantial expense that was not reimbursed. So I completely understand the advisory committee's concern, but we've become the wiser, I think, for it, have tried to limit costs, but now have a provision in a resolution and an amendment to the rules and regs that will allow us the flexibility to impose some or all of the legal costs for researching complex or unique issues. That's all I have on that subject.
Okay, Craig, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're on advisory committee comments. And those comments are on page 38 of our packet. And James, anything other than what is in your memo?
Well, Mr. Chairman, is this? Oh, go.
John? Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
James.
but somebody else was talking first, so let them finish.
John, this is just James from the advisory committee. We have no further comments.
Thank you, James. John, go ahead.
All right. It seemed to me, from what I've heard, is the advisory committee was very split on this. I've talked to some of my constituents. They're concerned about the complexity of this agreement, the any or all of the legal expenses. That seems to be, could be a slippery slope on who does that and how we do it. I guess I'm really torn on this one. We are worried about the legal aspect of this, but we also seem to have gone away from worrying about the engineering expenses and the admin expenses. am more inclined to have some kind of a system where the first one in would pay it, and then the next one in that benefited from that expense would be on a reimbursement program like the Sand District does with a sewer system. If you're the first one around to put in a sewer line to your property, everybody that taps in along the way has to pay their portion. I don't know if that would be something we could do, but I think a little more time needs to be spent with this, and especially with the way that the committee voted, which was I heard it was a 5-2 vote for all the attorney bills to be reimbursed. So I'm inclined not to agree with it as it's written.
Okay, thank you, John. Any public comments? Are we unmuted for everybody? Any public comments? Okay, hearing no public comments, we're on closing of the public hearing. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
This is Adam. I move that we close the public hearing.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Kathy. Is there any discussion regarding the motion to close the public hearing? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to close the public hearing by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ricky,
Yes.
Director Landry,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
and Director Harris.
Yes. Motion's carried unanimously. The public hearing is closed. We're now on item B, Antelope Valley Watermaster Rules and Regulations. Consideration and possible action to adopt Section 19, Recovery of Watermaster Legal Expenses when processing unique or complex applications. And Craig, I believe you've already given your report. Did you want to respond to some of John's comments?
Well, I mean, it's exactly what is teed up by the advisory committee's comments. I would just say I was directed to address the issue of the legal expenses arising from that initial transfer application that you'll recall several months ago was very time intensive and very costly. And so we've done what we think is the answer to that, and providing some flexibility, some discretion. And I understand the interest in expanding this to engineering fees. And we can take a look at that if the board so desires to try and expand the cost recovery in that area. But we were just charged on the legal expense and feel confident that this gives us the both the teeth and the flexibility to address that going forward.
This is Adam. I thought we already are recovering the engineering fees for applications and things of that nature.
We do. We do. We just may want to revisit the quantum of those numbers.
We can always do that on a separate matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Craig, I've got another question on that. Like, who decides if the issue is complex or not, and if we evaluate it by case, and somebody down the line disagrees with it? I mean, do we even have the authority to approach this way?
I think we do, John. I think we have the ability to reasonably recover our expenses as an adjunct to the judgment, as a fulfillment of the intentions of the judgment. This will be brought to Judge Comar's attention, and there'll be opportunity for people to file opposition to it. It will be a motion if the board approves it. But ultimately, it would be a matter of these applications coming before the board with a recommendation as to payment of legal expense, and the board would then approve or not approve based on the presentation of that issue. And so it's not a one size fits all. It's not every legal expense gets paid by the first in line. And so there is some discretion there and some review that would occur from the board. But it seems to me to be the reasonable process built in to discharge your responsibilities.
And just, this is Adam. For clarification, Craig, anyone submitting an application for anything obviously has the option to retain their own legal advice, correct? I mean, they don't have to incur our cost. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Though I mentioned that wasn't the problem in the initial complex transfers that this board entertained. There was counsel involved in it. It still required quite a bit of effort. But you're absolutely right. Nothing prevents applicants from vetting this thoroughly with their own legal counsel before presenting an application.
Right. Well, yeah, and the reason for bringing that up, I think their legal counsel could assess our legal fee, if it makes sense or not. In other words, it's not just like an engineering fee. The fee is what the fee is.
Yeah.
Okay, directors, any further?
Yeah, I have one quick question, Rob. Craig, I mean, as written, do you believe that this gives you as council, staff, the board, the public, the opportunity and discretion to discuss, review, and analyze if there is this complexity or unique applications come through, that there is enough transparency to see that, the proper costs have been allocated to, the applicant, as well as, evaluating its uniqueness or one time off for the board and its cost?
Yes, I do. It's a great question. I think that's the fundamental question. I do believe that's the case, and that the process is such that any objections can be raised appropriately. If we're off mark in what we think are the cost recovery in a certain application, there's going to be discussion before the board, and the boards will be able to monitor exactly what we're doing in that situation. So I think there's transparency because those applications, those cost recovery efforts are going to be in front of the board.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Questions? Kathy, did you have any comments or questions?
No, I didn't have any comments or questions. I was just listening to what Mr. Calandri said, and I just always feel that it as long as we can be fair and equitable in what we do to the best of our ability, that's the most important thing.
Thank you, Kathy. And yeah, any other comments? John, Adam, Derek, Kathy?
No, I feel very comfortable now that I heard the last comments from Craig, meaning that the board would get to evaluate things on a case basis.
Yeah, and my comments on it is I agree with Kathy regarding this, that I think we need to keep the flexibility to be able to determine who we charge. If we make it a blanket that we charge everybody for their legal fees, I think there's going to be some issues of fairness in some, like small pumper applications or some areas that are not complex. And from the very beginning, we have tried to keep this process as fair as possible for people and not charge more than we need to charge. So I like the flexibility.
Mr. Chairman, I'm still on this thing. If you go into the building department to Lancaster and ask for a permit and ask permission to do something, nobody is helping you pick up your fees. You're standing on your own. That's the way it is in everything. So I guess I'm still wondering why we have to pick up some of them. This is going to be, as we get deeper and deeper into this, this is going to become a bigger issue, I believe. I mean, we noticed there's more and more people asking for water. They're asking for a little more water each time. It started at 1 or 2 acre feet and 5 acre feet, and I think we have one in there for 35 or 40 acre feet. Yeah, I'm just trying to look down the line and see what kind of worms we're opening up.
Yeah, John,
Draw a hard, fast line.
John, and I don't disagree with that sentiment, except we have been gone for 4 years. We've only had 1 or 2 of these issues come up, and as long as we retain flexibility right now, if we see it's becoming a problem, we can go through this process again. But at this point, we're addressing the problem that has come up, and this resolution does that. And obviously, we do have the flexibility if we want to in the future to restrict it more. But I like the idea of keeping as much discretion at first, and if we see a problem come up, then we will address it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're on item B. Is there a motion to approve resolution number R2101, adopting section 19, recovery of Watermaster legal expenses when processing unique or complex applications?
I'll move. This is Adam. I move that we approve resolution R2101.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second? Is there a second to that motion?
This is Derek. I'll second it.
Motion second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Aye.
Director Ricky,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
For sake of the continued unity of this board and how it's functioned so well, I will vote yes.
thank you. Director Urosic
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes. Motion's carried unanimously. And that brings us to item C, Illinois Watermaster proposed 2021 application fee schedule.
Mr. Chairman, this is Craig. If I just mention, I will bring a motion to have this adopted by the court. Should be without controversy.
Derek, when you seconded, I took that as a yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Craig.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the resolution mentions we'll bring a motion to the court. That's the proper process we've always done with every amendment to the rules and regs.
Right.
Thank you very much. And
yeah, I'll report on that.
I did hear some discussion. That motion did pass unanimously with a vote from all directors. Okay, we're on item C, Illinois Watermaster proposed 2021 application fee schedule. And that will be our administrators, Matt?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. So on page 48 of your packet is resolution number R21-02. Staff is recommending approval of this resolution, which adopts the fee schedule, which is on page 49 of your packet. If you recall, we presented this proposed fee schedule at a previous meeting, and at that time it was determined that we'd hold off on approval of it once we had the revision to the rules and regs that we just approved in the previous item. So within the fee schedule, just to refresh everyone's memory, the fees for the various applications outlined covers the administrative cost as well as the engineering cost for Todd Groundwater. The asterisk indicates the legal fees that would be covered under the new rules and regs section 19J. Also, we're seeing a slight increase in these fees from 2020, which was reviewed at the previous meeting, and both staff administrative staff and the Watermaster engineer feel that these collection of these fees will recoup all of our costs associated with reviewing and recommending approval of the various applications. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are
This is
there any
Adam, Mr.
questions?
Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Matt, where was the, or were the adjustments made, just to recoup any increase in CPI, or was it done broader than that?
Yes, so we worked with Todd Groundwater, and obviously they kept track of actual time and effort spent on the various applications. And they were saying under the previous fee schedule that they were not recouping 100% of their cost.
I see.
So with these small adjustments, we feel that we can recoup 100% of our cost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Directors, public? Hearing none. On item C, is there a motion to approve resolution number R2102 approving the 2021 application fee schedule?
I move to approve.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
Second by Adam.
Motion second by Adam. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ricky,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. Resolution R2102 has been approved. We're now on item B, well application, small pumper qualifying and replacement well applications. And that will be Matt or Peter.
Actually, I'm going to turn that over to Angel to
Angel?
go through this, and she's got a couple slides here to go through this item.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Angel.
This is Watermaster staff. We have,
I'm having a hard
We
time.
can't hear you. Yeah.
sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Better.
That's good, thank you. We have one replacement well application this month for applicant Mark Ederson, as shown on page 54 of your agenda packet. This replacement well is located in the Central Antelope sub-area for domestic use. The applicant is a known small pumper requesting a replacement well for domestic use. The applicant is requesting this replacement well because his existing well ceased in mid-November and has had to haul water since. The applicant must decommission the existing well per the County of Los Angeles Public Health Department's requirements for well construction and decommission. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions by the directors? Any questions by the public? Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve resolution number R2103 approving the small pumper qualifying and replacement well of Mr. Atherton? It's a residential replacement well.
Yeah, I move that we approve the resolution.
Motion made by Adam to approve resolution 2103. Is there a second? Is there a second to that motion?
John seconds.
Motion second by John. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution number R2103 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ricky,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously to approve resolution number R2103. We're now on item E, well applications, new production applications, and new point of extraction applications. And I think that's going to be our engineer.
Good morning. This is Kate White from Todd Groundwater. How is my volume? Can everyone hear me okay?
Can you turn it?
A little bit.
And I'll make it a little bit louder. How's that? Is that better?
That's better, Kate. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. So there are 6 new production applications and 2 new points of extraction applications for approval on the agenda today. And they are listed on page 64 of the board packet. And 2 of the new production applications were held over from the December meeting, and I'm going to discuss those first. And they were held over because there was a question about overproduction and incomplete water use estimates for one of the applications. And the first application that we saw last month was Mr. Garcia's application. And there's been no change since last month, and that starts on page 66 of the packet. He's requesting 41 acre-feet per year for water use for a home, a barn, and irrigation of an 8-acre pistachio orchard. His property is in the Central Antelope Valley sub-area, and it's just south of the Edwards Air Force Base. Groundwater levels appear to be relatively flat in this area, and the locations of groundwater hydrograph figures and location of his parcel are on pages 69 and 70 of the packet. On figure 3, which is on page 71 of the packet, shows aerial images of two different scales. And the area is sparsely developed with a few rural residences that are about 750 to 1,500 feet away from Mr. Garcia's parcel. There are agricultural fields to the west that are irrigated with recycled water from the Los Angeles County Sanitation District's Lancaster Water Reclamation Plant. And these fields are shown in figure 4 on page 72. Because Mr. Garcia will be required to pay a replacement water assessment, there is no material injury associated with groundwater storage and sustainable yield. There is no expected impact to local water quality or natural recharge associated with this proposed production, and the irrigation is not expected to result in significant drawdown to local wells. And also impacts to land subsidence are not anticipated. And return flows associated with the adjacent parcels irrigated with recycled water could offset the small drawdown associated with use of this new well. Todd Groundwater finds the material injury as defined in the judgment negligible and recommends approval of this application.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions?
So, Kate, this is Adam.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. When we approve large amount like this, I mean, relatively speaking, when I say large, relatively speaking, how is this like a permanent thing? How is he going to be pumping this 41 acre feet per year? Is it metered? Or is he going to go up to 41?
It will be metered, and he can go up to 41, and he will pay replacement water assessment for what he pumps each year.
Of course. Does he have an existing well?
No.
He plans to drill a new well?
Correct.
And has the application for a new well, I guess with the county health been submitted to the county health, or he plans to do so, or what?
I think he plans to do so because I think I know the county health will not approve any new wells without a letter from the proof from the Watermaster that we've approved a new well in this area.
He would be legally liable to us, and we could assess him for that overpumping. Now, probably the bigger question is whether we want to consider, and this is for all the new production applications, because they raise the issue of whether we want to require parties like Mr. Garcia, if he overpumps in year one, not only pay the assessments for that over pumpage, but actually require him to reduce the next year. We've had those conversations at the board level before because these new production applications bring out these issues. And if the board wants to, at the appropriate time, direct council to look at the issue of whether we can put some more teeth into violations of new production amounts, we're happy to do that. But right now, in new production, a party to the agreement, you can either intervene if they're not a party, or if they're a party to an agreement, submit an application for new production and subject to material injury analysis. This is not a small pumper situation, which is limited to 3 acre feet.
Right, and thank you for that. And my main concern, and I would like to see some conditions on this, is what you said about pumping over a regular basis or misuse of this water for other than the intended purpose right now that in front of us. So I don't know how to put teeth into those two conditions. In other words, it's going to be up to 41 acre feet. And it is for the purpose that is stated in the application. For irrigation is 8 acres, and I believe a domestic house and a bar or something, if I heard it correctly. If the applicants deviated from these uses and started leasing that water or using it somewhere else, what recourse does the board have against the applicant?
It would be arguably a violation of the conditions of which he submitted to the board his request, and would be potentially subject to being enjoined activity.
All right. Out of this, there is specificity in his application saying that this is what it is going to be, and the applicant understand that this is the limited uses that he's applying for, and there are. I mean, do we have a rule, not a rule or regulation that state what you just said?
I think generally yes, but this raises the issue again, and what I'm requesting is the direction to bring this back next month with specific points about how to increase the teeth with respect to violations of new production, because the issue that the board has been aware of is whether as a business practice somebody violates the limits on their production application and simply pays replacement water assessment as a cost of doing business. And that cannot be the result that we want. We need to be able to enjoin the activity and then take affirmative steps if we think abuse is happening, to, for example, require a cutback in subsequent years in order to get back to the 41. Otherwise, it's a game that can be played.
Exactly. Now, how are we going to go about doing that?
Well, I think we have to think about amending potentially the rules and regulations. We'll look at, see what the teeth are, report back next month about specific provisions that need to be amended, if any. But I think it does. It's not clear now that we have the discretion to take action to cut back pumping. And I think we want to have that tool in our toolkit.
One last legal question. So should we wait to approve this application until such time we approve this amendment, if there is any need to amend the existing rules and regulations?
I think we have the authority, if there's an abuse of the use requirement of this application, to take the steps that we need to take. And frankly, it's going to be another couple of months before there's an amendment, potential amendment to the rules and regulations that goes to public comment and is voted on by the board.
Okay, so this retroactive issue is not going to be a legal matter.
No, I don't think so.
All right, thank you.
And Adam and Craig, if I could just, hello, this is Phyllis. If I could just add one little comment here. So one of the things that we did is put the application process in front of the board such that the board could improve the application form. And the applicant is required to sign that form. So it could be that we could handle this, at least in the interim, by including the requirements that the applicant stick to the amount asked for and for the use that it's asked for on that application form that they sign. And that would put
I like that.
Seems like put a little bit more teeth into it.
I like that, Phyllis. I mean, you said it exactly the way I was thinking about it. Thank you. I like that. Assuming that our attorneys think it's okay to do that.
Okay, any further discussion on the Garcia application?
I have a question that's maybe a little further out, Mr. Chairman. If we ever get into a drought situation and the water in Antelope Valley all of a sudden gets prorated, do we have a priority established? Is it going to be the people that have established water rights in the initial judgment over people that are coming in late and doing replenishment water?
We don't have that priority system built in that I can recall. I'd be certainly open to hearing any comments that the attorneys on the line have about that.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that latecomers to the judgment are deprioritized in the way you're talking about.
Okay, I just think something we need to put under new business because I think that could be something that could come up later to really cause a uproar. Because the people that have established water rights versus the ones that are establishing new rights by using replacement water, I could see. I remember some of the hostile fights when AVEC was first formed. We need to address it at some point in time.
And so I think that's what it addresses the advisory committee's concern in that.
Mm-hmm. All right, just wanted to throw that out there when we're talking about this stuff. I guess keep adding more people.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point, John.
And we're going to be revisiting this in the engineer's report at the end of this meeting when we talk about new production. So I just wanted to give the board the opportunity to have a few more things to say about that at the end of this meeting.
Great. Thank you, Phyllis. Any other questions on the Garcia application? Hearing none, Kate, go ahead.
All right, the next application is Mr. Odango's new production application. And we saw this last month, but he has since revised it. And it starts on page 91 of the packet. And he's now asking for 5 acre-feet per year for domestic and agricultural use. And he previously was asking for 30 acre-feet per year for domestic and future potential farming use. His well will have a capacity of about 5 gallons per minute, and it's in a sparsely populated area. And let's see, some of the figures in the packet that went out on Friday were cut off. And so if you want to see the full figures, those applications have been posted to the Watermaster website under meetings. Let's see. Mr. Odango will be required to pay a replacement water assessment, so there's no material injury associated with storage and sustainable yield. And the new production is outside of areas of historic or current land subsidence, so there's no material injury anticipated with that. Nor is there material injury anticipated with water quality or recharge. Mm-hmm. And the proposed well is only designed for 5 gallons per minute, and so would not likely significantly impact any local private wells. So based on this information, we recommend approval of Mr. Odango's application for 5 acre-feet per year. Are there questions on this one?
The only question I have, Kate, do we do a cumulative injury analysis as we go? In other words, going back to what John's concern was, 40 acre feet, 5 acre feet here, 10 acre feet there. At one point, accumulatively, we could have an issue, right?
We total new production by sub area. I just started to do that by year and by sub area.
Kate, you're away from your mic.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Yep.
We total new production by sub area and by year, and kind of just have totals of that, but we don't really have like a threshold of when we need to kind of stop looking at it, or when we think there's an issue.
But my thought was, if we, in addition to individual injury analysis, we do an accumulative injury analysis, then we would know when the accumulative additional pumping, have a detrimental impact to the basin, and then we think about what steps we need to take. You know what I mean? Like within a subunit, if you've authorized additional pumping of 1,000 acre feet, but it came in over like 20 applications, we're not right now doing that accumulative impact, right?
Well, what we're doing is we're looking at where these wells are going in and what groundwater levels are in that area and what other production, including production rates, are occurring in the various areas. So we are kind of looking at groundwater levels.
So you are considering the non-pumpers that we approved already. Got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, and so I'm okay with this, similar to the one with the 40, provided we add that language that fellas suggested on the application.
Okay. Are there any other questions on this application? All right, we will move on. The next application starts on page 106, and it's also for new production, and it's in the southeast sub-area. And it's for domestic use on a residential property. Applicants requesting 1.5 acre feet per year for a single family home with minimal landscaping. And given the small amount of production and the obligation to pay a replacement water assessment, we find that the potential for material injury is defined in the judgment to be negligible and recommend approval of the Ellis new production application. Any questions on this one?
And this lady here, or gentleman, that they're not in the small class.
No.
These are non-pumpers, right?
No, because there's no well in they were not pumping previously.
Okay. So they're non-pumpers. Got it.
Yes,
Thank you.
so they'll be paying replacement water assessment for this water.
Got it.
All right, if there's no other questions, I will move on. The next one starts on page 117 of the packet. And this is also for new production. And it's for 1 acre foot per year. And it's in the eastern portion of the southeast sub-area. And the water would be used for a single family home, landscaping, and possibly a few farm animals. And given the small amount of production and the obligation to pay the replacement water assessment, we find that the potential for material injury, as defined in the judgment, to be negligible and recommend approval of the Xinhua application. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Are there any questions on this one? All right, moving on. The next one is also for new production, and the Mettler Valley Mutual Water Company Their application starts on page 131 of the packet. And the Mutual Water Company is on the default list of the judgment, and they do not have a production right. And they're requesting 116 acre-feet per year of new production to supply existing and build out water to its 98 lot service area. And they're in the West Antelope sub-area. They currently supply water to 66 or 67 lots. And past production has averaged about 71 acre-feet per year. And they've been defined by the state as a severely disadvantaged community and received a state grant to treat arsenic in their drinking water. It has one active well and an inactive well that it would like to replace. And it's submitted a new point of extraction application in conjunction with this new production application for the replacement well. And there's a figure in the packet on page 134 that shows location of where the Mutual Water Company is with respect to spring 2020 groundwater contours. And their well is about 1.5 miles south of AVAC's High Desert Water Bank, and it's near the southern boundary of the groundwater basin in adjudicated area. And again, I think the figures in this packet were cut off, and complete figures are available on the Watermaster website. And hydrographs from nearby wells with water levels measured by USGS. You can see some of them on page 135 of the packet, which is figure 2. And the hydrograph for the closest well, which is USGS well number ending in 3401, which is the left middle of figure 2, shows a decrease in water levels of about 50 feet between the spring of 2007 and the spring of 2019. And this well is about 1 mile east of the Mutual Water Company well. And there's another well, which is number 3201 on the left bottom of figure 2. And that shows a decline of about 38 feet between 2012 and 2018, and then a slight increase between 2018 and 2020. And this well is about 2 miles to the east of the Mutual Water Company well. And groundwater elevations in a well about 2 miles to the north show a slight decline between 2013 and 2018, then an increase in the 2018 and 19. And this increase in water levels may reflect recharge at the High Desert Water Bank during that time period. And the USGS has mapped several faults in this area that appear to impede groundwater flow based on water level contours provided in the USGS report. And the faulting may have resulted in some compartmentalization of the groundwater basin in this area. However, the specific locations of these faults with respect to the water company wells and surrounding wells is uncertain. And the current Mutual Water Company well has maintained capacity for many years. In addition, recharge at the local High Desert Water Bank will likely support water levels in this area. And recognizing that the Mutual Water Company wells have already been producing about 72 acre-feet per year for many years, the additional 44 acre-feet per year for future build-out is unlikely to result in significant local water level declines. There's also a figure, which is figure 3 in the packet, that shows land use in the vicinity of the Mutual Water Company, and the area is predominantly rural, with agriculture irrigation to the north, west, and east. And the California aqueduct is about 4,000 feet to the north. Because the Mutual Water Company will pay a replacement water assessment for production, there is no material injury associated with groundwater storage and sustainable yield. The new production is not within the historic or current areas of inelastic land subsidence. And there's no expected impact to local water quality or recharge associated with this new production. In the absence of ongoing material injury associated with water levels, the additional 44 acre-feet per year is not expected to add any significant local water level decline. And additional impacts are considered negligible, and no material injury is expected. It is also recognized that the current homes are reliant on groundwater, as their only source of water supply. The applicant will have to pay a replacement water assessment, and we find that there's no potential for material injury as defined in the judgment, and recommend approval of this application.
Been pumping now all along, right?
Correct.
Then shouldn't they be paying assessment for?
Yes, so approval of this application is dependent on them paying all past replacement water obligations and administrative assessments, and that they agree to pay future replacement water assessments. And finalize a metering on their existing well and their proposed well.
Okay. And you said historically they've been pumping 96 acre feet?
Historically, it's been about 77.
77. And they're anticipating growth?
Yeah. So right now there's like 67 of their parcels that are have houses on them. And their build out is 98 parcels. And their past projections average about 71 acre feet per year. So they're requesting a total of 116. So it's additional 44 acre feet per year. 44, yeah.
Did they say when do they anticipate this growth to come in?
No. I didn't ask, and they haven't provided kind of estimated when build out will occur.
Will they be amenable to, say, asking for what they need today and then amending their application going forward as the need arises?
I think if it passed, then perhaps they could do that. I haven't personally talked to them, but I think that if they, that's the way it has to be, then I think that they would be probably agreeable to that.
Thank you.
So this is Derek. I do have a couple questions that have been brought to my attention. It may not be as much for you, Kate, as for staff and council. More on, I'm supportive of this, and we need to make sure they're paying replacement water. Is how we go about the past assessments, and this is more of a practice and policy side. So they've been pumping since 2016, right? So they've pumped 70 acre feet and 70 acre feet and so on and so forth. And in 2020, how much did they pump, Kate? Do we have that number?
We don't have that number yet.
Okay. Do we think it's relatively near the same, 70-ish?
Yes.
Okay. So they pump this, and so it's more of the question of the assessment amount, right? Do we use 2021 assessment rates and water rates? Do we penalize an interest to that? Knowing, it's just, and we may have tackled this beforehand and I just don't recall or wasn't part of it, but I think we're setting a precedent of how we address this issue. So I want to make sure from council and from staff we really think about, and if you need direction from the board, how we look at getting these fees repaid for past years.
Derek, Patty, in the past, what we've done is we've billed them the fee for that year that they did the pumping. So if it was 2016, they were charged the administrative fee, 2016, and the replacement water fee for 2016. If it was 2018, the administrative fee for 2018 and the replacement water fee for 2018. That's how we've been charging.
And the logic behind that, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I mean, if I just think about we're in 2021, right, or just wrapped up 2020, and so go ahead. I'm sorry, I asked you a question and I interrupted.
The water in that year, so that was the year that we charged them for. That was the replacement water fee for that year. That was adopted by the board, so that was the fee that we charged by.
So, Pat, how did we do, what is the Pinion Hill, whatever,
Phelan Pinion Hills?
the Phelan Pinion Hill?
When we have invoiced them, again, we invoiced them for the year that they pumped.
Yeah, I think that's to be consistent based on what Derek was saying, which I agree with. We can't set precedent. We need to kind of follow the same script.
And is there interest? I'm asking the question, not wanting
I
to
think
penalize
we did
them.
charge interest.
Yeah.
But we need to be consistent. I mean, I think your point is well taken. We need to be very consistent.
We haven't done a contract or anything that has any interest involved in the contract. I think to charge an interest rate, we would have to do some type of contract with them. We do have a late charge that we can charge once we bill, but even on that, sometimes we've negotiated some of that out so that, we get a payment.
Mm-hmm. But I thought we charged Phelan Pinion Hills interest. I mean, I could be wrong, but I seem to think that we were adding interest.
No, we haven't. We have invoiced them. They have not paid anything. We have not, because we're still in full process with them.
Did the invoice amount include interest?
And any interest or any late payment, any late charges on their billing.
Yeah, I don't know why I seem to think maybe we just discussed it and we never did. Okay.
We are tracking their attorney fees so that we can bill for their attorney fees sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask this question. I may get a little bit over my ski tips, but this came up on another assessment late fee board on a board I'm on. Is in our rules and regs is there a late fee or interest in there that we do that we do apply to items like this or any late fees?
Yeah, the rules and regs identifies a late fee, and it's tied to the same rate for the tax assessor that they apply. So in our case, 10%.
Okay, so let me just ask this next question because this came up, and I want to get council and staff's opinion. Is when and we may have waived it in the past, but there's public. I'm not going to use the right word, but it's almost like public, value or public use. So when we start, taking money that was approved, that's public, and start, waiving it or not.
Right.
That may get a little beyond our discretion and our ability as a public agency. And I know we are a representative of the court and the judgment. That sends up a red flag in my mind. So just asking that question to council and staff.
The ones that we have always come to the board. Becky, Derek, Craig, I can't think if you can remember some of the other ones that we've dealt with that we've done 2016, 2017. Derek comes to mind for me.
Yeah. This is the Mettler matter raises a couple of issues. I mean, first, they're defaulted parties, so they're in the judgment, but they have no production right. So they are required to pay replacement water assessment for, as Kate reflects there, 2016 to 2019, and are not subject to the waiver of those fees for the 2-year period 2016 2017. So it seems to me one of the main issues is, do we condition approval of this on their bringing current their administrative and replacement water assessments? At least either bringing current or entering into an arrangement whereby a payment plan is agreed upon so that they can come current with that, because their bill is substantial. I don't know if staff has the number, but I see that as a problem that we might be able to solve at the front end a lot easier than if we approve it and try to extract the money.
I thought that's what Kate said. This is Adam. think she said this is the approval of this is conditioned on
Yes.
their payment of all the past replacement and assessment charges.
Right. And those will be significant financial challenges for them.
So we can work out a deal with them.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point.
Mhm.
They have paid all of their administrative assessments up to 2020.
Good. But they just didn't pay the replacement water fee.
Well, their replacement water, we have invoiced them for it. It's it's just under $200,000. And if you remember what Kate said, this is considered one of those areas.
Disadvantage. Yeah.
Disadvantage. So it will be a challenge for them. And once we get this application approved, we have indicated to them that staff will sit down with them and we will help them with getting them on the website for replacement water. Maybe they can get some transfers to help them out with that.
Yeah, as long as it's conditioned. In other words, this approval is conditioned on their willingness to work with us on that, how they do it, the mechanics of it, whether it's they lease water rights or they pay the replacement water is fine. And from my perspective, I really would like to, at this point, with the approval, for that number to be what their true need today, and then, with the condition that we will be accommodative to them up to 116 as their need or additional homes are built. Hello? Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think about, and this is just my own opinion, is that, again, this is an underprivileged area.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they have to come back in every time to get a couple acre feet approved for a new house that they're putting on property, yeah, they should pass that on maybe to the home buyer or the property owner. But, we're going to be charging them, the application fee and the whole process. And then what happens if 2 or 3 years down the line, we put a moratorium or we stop giving production right? They're asking for something that they may not use, but at least it's on the books that they've requested this water. That's just my opinion.
I'm on the Watermaster meeting. Okay. Thank you. I hear you. I think the cost should be borne by the new property owner, and it's not a lot of money. My concern is, maybe I shouldn't say what my concern is. I'm concerned about just randomly approving an amount that may or may not be needed in the next 20 or 30 years for the reasons that Mr. Clandry stated before, and then also to prevent temptations to start creating the secondary market for this water. I mean, I'm very interested in helping this community, and I understand they're disadvantaged community, and we're public servants after all. But I think, though, we need to have to use our discretion to be careful. That's why I was asking, when do they anticipate this growth? I don't even mind giving them maybe a little bit more just as a cushion in case they need it. But who knows, it may take 30, 40 years for the full growth to happen.
Adam, this is Rob. They're asking for 160 feet, and Patty's point, which I agree with completely, is especially for this community, we should use our discretion so that they're not coming in every year or 2 years or 3 years and paying the fees that are going to be passed through to their customers. And if it were 1,000 acre feet, I would agree with you, but they're well within the range of where they're going to be in 4, 5, 6 years. And this is not at 116 acre feet. It doesn't make sense to keep them coming back. So that's my thoughts of it.
So, valid. I hear you. I don't think it is a big deal to come back because, like I said, you can always put that burden on whoever built a new home. However, though, are you concerned about cold water and somebody in the water agency deciding to allow other people to come there and buy water and they sell it to them for hot water purposes?
I understand that's a possibility, but that's not what they're putting in their application. They're putting in their application for use for future build out. So if it came to our attention that that's what they were doing, we would have, I would believe, discretion to go back to them and stop that.
Okay. Yeah, maybe then language to that effect in the application where it says, this is an authorization for this sole use of the customers of this water agencies. And because that's what my biggest fear is some of the board members have stated over and over this: we set precedent, we take actions, with good intention, and then down the road, these decisions come back to either haunt the board or just make us or make our credibility less reliable. Because like I said, I've been working in the AV now for a very, very long time, and I know it's going to take a very long time for them to fully develop. We may be even dead by the time that happens. But that's my concern. And then fine, if the board is to approve the entire amount, I'd like the application to be very clear. This amount is approval for the use of this mutual water companies for the properties within the mutual water companies, and any deviation will lead to the board withdrawing their approval.
Greg, can you comment on that, or is that?
Yeah, I think you have the discretion to do that. I was just looking at the judgment and the restrictions on defaulting parties anyway. There are some built-in controls on this. For example, if they tried to transfer, I don't think they'd have the status to do so under the judgment, and it would come to our attention for approval, at which time we would open up the issue of this was granted for the purposes stated in your application. So I think there are some built-in controls, but there's certainly nothing preventing us from making painfully clear in the approval process that this is strictly for use as stated in their application. I think I'd put it that way rather than
But here is the issue, and I hear you. Here is the issue: who is going to monitor? They said that they're using 70-some acre feet per year, right? So, 5 years from today, would anybody go there and say, well, historically these people are only using 76, now all of a sudden they're using 110? Did they really add that many homes, or where is this water going? Who's going to police that?
Yeah, if the water's metered, I don't like to put it off on the engineer, but I would think that would raise the question whether the usage, which is increased over the amount approved by the board, is being used for the purposes represented in the application.
Even if it's not above the amount, but who is going to check that there were additional homes equivalent to the additional amount of water that historically have been used by this community?
Yeah, it requires a level of oversight that we haven't applied to others in this. I would just say this is going to be part of the analysis because the information, the metered information would come to the engineer unless it raises a red flag. Maybe Phyllis or Kate can comment about how else it would be addressed.
That was why I said,
Yeah.
they should come back. But anyhow.
Well, I think when we look at annual new production reports, I notice if there's a big jump or a big decrease, and that kind of raises flags for me, and I just kind of look at what was going on, and I look at what wells were pumping and how much they pumped for that applicant. And that's one little thing that I check when I see there's a big difference, and why is there a difference?
And Adam, this is Rob. That's something maybe you and Derek can bring up in the administrative committee and discuss with staff and maybe come up with proposals for the board. But it's not something we're going to be able to resolve today. And we have a lot left on our agenda. It might be good to continue through this. And if, at least on this one, it's clear what they want it for. And if Kate and Phyllis can make it clear if and when this is approved, that we're going to hold them to that. But this is going to come up over and over again, so it's not something we're going to resolve during this discussion.
All right.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the Mettler Valley new production? Okay, Kate, go ahead.
All right. Okay, so the next new production application starts on page 174 of the packet. And a new production application was approved for Mr. Joe Hawk at the July board meeting. And in that application, he asked for 1.5 acre feet to supply water to a single family home. He now wants to request additional new production to supply water to 2 additional proposed homes on adjacent parcels. So this one well, which has recently been installed, will supply 3 homes. And he's requesting an additional 11 acre feet per year for those 2 other homes, plus the 1.5 acre feet per year for the home that was approved in July. And the 2.5 total acre feet per year for these 3 homes, it's a very conservative maximum amount, and actual production will likely be much less. Figure 1 in the packet on page 171, that's also cut off, but it does kind of show his well location with respect to spring 2020 groundwater contours. And it shows that the well is located about 1.5 miles southeast of the high desert water bank, and it's near the southern boundary of the groundwater basin and adjudicated area. And this well is very close. Well, it's about 1.5 miles east of the Mettler Valley Mutual Water Company well discussed in the previous application. So there's similar groundwater levels and faulting in that area. Land use in the vicinity of the well is predominantly rural, and the California Aqueduct is only about 750 feet to the north of the parcel. Because Mr. Joho was required to pay a replacement water assessment for production, there's no material injury associated with groundwater storage and sustainable yield. The production is not within the historical or current areas of inelastic land subsidence, and there is no expected impact to local water quality recharge associated with pumping 12.5 acre feet from this well. And we determined that the application is complete and that there'll be no material injury associated with pumping 12.5 acre feet from this well, and recommend approval. Are there any questions on Joe Haas shared well application?
I just have a comment. It's the same thing. I just want to remind the board that it's the same thing. He's asking for more water than
Yes,
is
let
needed
me see if I
for
can
the
get you on my phone.
2 homes that he's adding.
Yeah. Are you there?
Correct. It's kind of like an average of 4 acre feet per well.
Right. So I just want to bring that to the board attention that we're going through the same thing. Everybody's asking for more water they need. And I just think the board has the responsibility to assess those requests and make the right decision.
Great. Okay. Well, my login code is.
And I think the engineers who are helping these
128.
applicants, not Todd Gunner, but the outside engineers, and I think word got out that that they can't pump over what they're requesting, and so I think some of these applications are coming in with little bit conservative estimates.
But that's inaccurate.
5157.
If they apply for what they need, let's say an acre a foot per home or whatever it is, an acre and a half per home, and they happen to pump 1.8, they just need to pay that additional 0.3. There is no penalty on that.
I'm gonna take over here.
Yeah.
And I'm with Adam
many
on that
times it
100%, and this has been a
viewer
point of
is
contention
too
for a
old
while.
You know, you brought it
Do we
up.
have?
Wait a
Do we have a?
Hey, John, everybody, yeah, go ahead, John, I just don't want people talking over each other. Go ahead.
I guess my question is to Craig: is there a total? Is there any maximum limit that these people can do this in the settlement, in the judgment anywhere, or can this go on ad infinitum?
There's arguably a restriction on small pumper class based on the number of parcels and the
are you still there, Mike?
1.2 acre foot usage for 3,800, about 3,800 acre feet. But outside of that, it's a determination by the engineer on the material injury analysis. And
so if we were to hit 30, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If we were to hit 3,800 feet, that means all other applications would have to be denied. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
They have a maximum in the settlement.
That's for small pumper class, and that's subject to some revision depending on the circumstances. So it's a number to keep in mind, but it's the analysis goes a bit deeper than that. But that's for small pumpers.
Sorry.
Craig,
John.
this is Rob. We're talking about the non-pumper class when they're putting in applications.
John Joyce.
Right.
This water is replacement water, and so it would be up to the Antelope Valley State Water contractors to decide at what number does it become
The phone number is 661.
where they can't provide the water. And that's so
810.
we do need to keep track of this and see how much we're using, but at some point it's going to be up to the state water contractors to say yes or no, we can provide or can't provide. And we're charging them the rates of what the cost is to provide this water as replacement water. And so it's not production water from the valley that we're talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah, 334.
This is Kate. In to date, total new production that's been approved totals 366
Mike, are you still there?
per year. But that includes 215 acre feet per year that was approved for Bannock, and it was only approved for 2020 and 2021. So for long-time use, it's only 151 acre feet per year of new production that's been approved. So it's not a huge number.
I thank you for that, Kate. That's good information. I guess I'm still looking further down the line in case there's ever a drought situation and the landowners have crops in the ground and there's a pro rata of water and they're not in a priority position. I still think we're going to need to get this.
Mike, I got cut off.
This is something the landowners, especially the farmers, want to get clarified for the future.
Mike, I got
And,
cut
and
off.
that's going to be, John, another question for Craig. If this is replacement water that is being provided by the state water contractors, then I don't know how in a drought situation would have an impact on production water. It may, but I don't know how that would.
I agree with you. I don't know how it would, but I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, because the state contractors are storing thousands and thousands right now. We're up to about 100,000 acre feet in the ground and growing. Palmdale is starting a storage program, and so there's going to be large supplies of storage water available that would be used as replacement water. So it's not. I mean, that's a question maybe we should look into and make sure, but I'm looking at Peter and Matt, and they're shaking their heads yes, so that's a pretty good indication.
Yeah, I think, I don't think we can just, something I know that a lot of the farmers are concerned with, and it's just something we should get on the agenda somewhere in the future and deal with it.
Yeah, certainly.
I know it's not a top priority, but I'd like to see it there someday.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe not to interrupt, but Rob, and to John's point is, I think it would be helpful, because I know this has come up at the advisory committee meetings, is that a good solid explanation of what John's asking the question about, describing the difference between production rights, this, replacement water, how the two play out, how they impact us, in droughts, in usage, in availability, those types. I think that would be a good new business when staff can pull that together, because the sooner the better. It's becoming a point of concern when these well applications come up. You hear it from the all of the producers at the advisory committee meeting that they're concerned about it. So I think it needs to be addressed. To that point. And I think the second thing is, and Kate, I'm going to say something and it has a negative connotation, and I don't think it's anything you've done, but it feels like these applicants and through their advice are gaming the numbers that they're putting down for that. That just, I don't like that. I don't like that as a process. I know it is replacement water and they are paying for it. But there's got to be some accountability to what Adam said and John, that their usage and their application are somewhat correlated, and there isn't this big play. So, oh boy, we run out of water now. I got extra. I can do something. Like whether that's their intention or not, it gives that viewpoint that we're all bringing up.
Yeah, I think we want to make sure that everyone is looking for what's essential, really essential for their needs, as opposed to asking for extra just to have extra. So,
and this is Adam.
Kathy, I agree that this is a agenda item we should put on, so it's explain what I understand, to summarize that we want to have a discussion about production water. What if there's a drought? What if there's a cutback? How does that affect replacement water? And I think that's a fair discussion to have, and may short circuit some of these long discussions at these meetings. So
yeah, definitely for a future agenda item.
Put that on for a future agenda. I'll talk to Matt and Pete and see how quickly we can get a presentation from staff on that issue with Craig's involvement, and get some resolution to some of these questions. And Derek and Adam, again, if there's some administrative issues that you guys want to meet with staff and clarify too, I think that would be a good thing to do. So, and I know, question for Kate and Phyllis, we are tracking, you just gave the number, but we are tracking the total replacement water that we're approving in these new production requests. Is that correct?
Yes, of course. We report that in the annual report, and we account for that, as needed. And I just also like to take the opportunity, since I've already interrupted, to add to your agenda item. It sounded to me as if there's also a need for the engineer, i.e. us, to also consider the amount being asked for and compared back to the use.
Yes.
It's not been done. We have sort of taken the applicant's word, so to speak, I think, in the past. And I think that what I'm hearing from the board members is that it's important to make sure that people are not asking for more water than they need, and that we better understand exactly how that water is planned to be used. So that's on us as well.
Thank you.
Phil, would it be a logical thing to do is to say, like, make a chart if it's a residential house, standard uses is 1 acre feet, house with X amount of landscaping, 1.5 acre feet, have some kind of not a graph, but a chart indicating what is actually acceptable and normal.
Sure. There's a variety of iterations, as you can imagine, with respect to whether or not there's landscaping, associated with the property, et cetera. But we do that at Todd Groundwater as a matter of course in our business practice. Our staff are familiar with those types of usages, and I think we can justify it on a case-by-case basis coming back to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
And if I may, I know we need to move on, but this is for Craig, for the non-timber class. My understanding, the judgment called for beneficial use.
That's got to be, that's implied in all the use.
But that's critical. If my beneficial use is 1.5 acre feet, and I'm asking for 11 acre feet,
yeah,
the 9 acre feet that I'm asking for above my beneficial use is not beneficial use.
Yeah, that there needs to be some structure as to how we make a determination that the request is inflated. It seems to me there's two extremes. One is the people that underpredict and then blow away their new production limit and pay replacement water assessment as a business choice. We need to address that group. And then on the other end are those that say, well, I'm not going to exceed my production right, but I'm going to inflate the numbers in order to get the higher number to start with. We've got to have a process in place to analyze those requests and make a determination of what's reasonable.
Agreed. And that's what Carlos was saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good discussion. Can we move on to the next one?
Yes, this is Kate. I just want to add that actually do look at those production numbers, and I have gone back, and in the case of Joha, I have gone back and asked that them to, is that the real number, is that what they need? So I do that, and I will continue to scrutinize it in the future. And in some cases, the outside engineer has prepared those water use spreadsheets, and I've asked for copies of those, and I will continue to do that and to include those in the application. So that may be helpful too, to actually see where these water estimates are coming from, submitted from the applicants. Okay. You're welcome. Okay, moving on. So that's all the new production applications. We have 2 more applications, and they're both for new points of extraction. And the next application starts on page 189, and that is it's by AVEC, and they would like to use a well by its high desert water bank for construction water for the banking facility. The well will be used for up to 2 years, during which time less than 100 acre feet will be pumped from the well. So it's like an average 50 acre feet per year for those 2 years. After project completion, the well will be either returned to standby status, or it will be incorporated into the project, And at that time, a storage agreement application will be submitted to the Watermaster for review and material injury analysis before this well is incorporated into the project. And given the small amount of production over a limited 2-year period, and that no signs of material injury have been indicated to date with similar extractions in the area, we find the potential for material injury as defined in the judgment to be negligible and recommend approval of this AVEC new point of extraction application. Are there any questions on this one? Okay. So we're at the last application, and that's on page 200 of the packet. And it's also for a new point of extraction. And it's for Vulcan Materials Company. And a replacement well for Vulcan was approved at the August board meeting. But they drilled a borehole, and the borehole encountered bedrock at a higher elevation than anticipated. And they subsequently destroyed the borehole in accordance with the LA County requirements and would like to drill a new well, but had to submit this new point of extraction application because their new well will be over 300 feet from an existing well. And they also, they gave a suggested new well location, but they feel that if that location does not provide sufficient water, they would like their application to also include other locations on the same parcel or adjacent parcels that they own. And in the packet, there's a picture, there's a figure on page 209, which shows Vulcan's 3 existing wells in the southeast sub-area. And they use their water for aggregate processing. And they anticipate that the annual production from this new well will be about 400 acre-feet per year. But it's going to vary according to aggregate production demand. And they do not intend to abandon any of their existing wells. So their past production has ranged from 252 acre-feet per year in 2016 to 619 acre-feet per year in 2019. And their production rate is 260 acre-feet, and their 2021 ramp down is about 346 acre-feet. And so it's pumping more, they're pumping more than their production rate, and so they received a transfer of 495 acre-feet in 2020 and used 186 acre-feet of this for their 2019 replacement water assessment, and that leaves 308 acre-feet for them to use for 2020 and 2021 production. Let's see. Their proposed well will be over 1,400 feet from any of their active wells, and reportedly over 1,500 feet from any neighboring wells, which are to the east. And Vulcan does not know of any operating neighboring wells within half a mile radius to the west or to the north of the proposed well location. They also performed a fixed radius calculation to determine the radius of influence of pumping from this new well, and determined that 1,200 to 1,700 feet is protective of adjacent wells based on pumping rates, other wells, and hydraulic parameters, and a safety factor. And that calculation is included in their application if people want to look at that. And they concluded that the calculated distance is consistent with observations from their well 2 and 3, which operate continuously over an 8-hour day and do not see any significant drawdown and no observed connection between other wells, have been associated with pumping these on-site wells. So initially their production is going to shift to the new well from the existing wells, but future production is unknown and could potentially increase depending upon demand. And if this occurs, Vulcan will need to pay either replacement water assessment fees for any additional pumping, or they need to acquire additional transfer water. and a material injury analysis of any additional production would be conducted for a transfer at the time the transfer water is requested. Because this production represents a shifting of production from the same or adjacent parcels owned by Vulcan, or that Vulcan will be required to pay a replacement water assessment for additional production, there is no material injury associated with groundwater storage and sustainable yield. The production is not within historical or current areas of inelastic land subsidence. Further, there is no expected impact to local water quality or recharge associated with this proposed well locations. So considering the above information and analyses, we recommend approval of this new point of extraction application for Vulcan. Are there any questions on this application?
Nope.
Go ahead, Adam.
No, I said no. The only thing is, I think you said the new extraction point is going to be 300 feet away from an existing well. Is this existing well owned by the Vulcans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's over 300 feet. And so instead of just a replacement well application, that triggered the need for them to do a new point of extraction well application.
Got it.
Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Now we're on resolution number R2104. Is there a motion to approve resolution R2104 approving the new production point of extraction applications 1 through?
Move to approve.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
Well, 1 second.
Second.
1 second. So,
Wait.
21-04, this is for the 2 points of extractions?
Now, 2104 is for all 8 of the new production applications that have been presented. For the new.
I thought we were going to postpone some of those until we further discuss issues and analyze the exact beneficial use.
That wasn't my understanding. I know we've had discussions about it. We have postponed, I believe, the first 2 already once. That was Garcia and Odango. So what is the pleasure? And is there, before we get into discussion, is there a second to the motion?
John seconded.
Motion made by Kathy, seconded by John. Okay, further discussion on resolution number R2104.
I've stated my views. At the least, to use John's line, in the interest of cooperation here, we need statements in each one of those applications addressing the concern that I've raised, specifically that the water that they are asking for is going to be for the purpose that is intended and stated in the application. I know Craig said we have authority to go after them, but I raised my concern about who's going to police this. I share their gaming the system comment. I share Kathy's, you should only ask for what you need. You shouldn't be asking. And again, this is in the spirit of what the judgment calls for, beneficial use of water. We are setting, as a board, setting a precedent, proving amount of water that could be misused, unintentionally, as the case may be, but it could be misused.
Okay. And we're trying to address that with the future agenda items. And I believe, Craig, can you comment? I think with the applications the way they are, we can go forward and approve them with And is there something we need to do to make the applicants aware that their requests will be monitored in some way, or is that just part of the application process now?
I don't know that I certainly can look at that to see if there's something more to tamp down. But right now, the applicant signs under penalty of perjury that the information they've revealed is true and correct. And we have enjoinment powers under the judgment to stop production in excess of what is approved. We have Kate and Phyllis's oversight as engineers as to monitoring for meter readings and the front end monitoring that, as Kate said, she makes some discretionary oversight as to the reasonableness of the use for what is outlined by the applicant. So I think with those in place, there's a structure to deal with overproduction and inflated estimates. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there may be more that can be done, and I'm happy to come back next month after looking at that with staff and the engineer to see whether there's more tightening that can occur on the applications and in the rules and regs.
And my concern is I just don't want to make this so onerous for the public. These are the people who are doing it right. We're going to engineers, sending in applications. They're trying to follow the rules. We have hundreds and hundreds out there that aren't following the rules, and those are the people we should focus our attention on, not those that are trying to follow the rules. And we can go forward and talk about the issues that have come up, but to keep delaying these applications and putting these people up, that's not what and that's not what we should be doing.
Well,
So,
we don't have to delay them. We can approve them and amend them.
well, they put in for certain production requests. They've done that under penalty of perjury. It's not outrageous. Any of the production requests that are here. One was for pistachio trees. One's for 3 houses. One's a mutual that wants up.
The 3 houses, I think, is too much water. The mutual water company is asking for too much water. I agree with you. The other one with the pistachio farm, maybe as long as he uses for that purpose, it will be fine. I'm not saying every application. I'm just saying we will be setting precedents that next board meeting, if somebody comes in and asks for 10 acre feet for one home, we'll be hard pressed to say we're not going to approve it.
That's 11 acre feet for 3 homes, and it's out, and there's acreage involved in those homes, and if they want to do any type of planting of trees or anything out there on the acreage, then those aren't outrageous requests. It's my thoughts. And Kate and Phyllis looked at those, and they've sent them to us, and they've recommended approval. So again, if we want to start blocking applications of people who are doing it right, I don't like that precedent.
I'm not saying we should block application. I think we should do our job by ensuring that the requested amount is commensurate with the intended use and the beneficial use. I didn't hear Kate and or Phyllis saying they did that. They said, yes, they had an engineer, but it's clear to me that all the requested amounts are inflated. To what extent, that is debatable, but they're inflated. We approve small pumpers all the time, asking for 1.5 acre for 1 acre. For somebody to ask for 3 acres per home, it is inflated. Now, they didn't say they have washer, they didn't have any of that stuff. It just, there would be 3 homes that would be built. So he's asking for water. The 3 homes may never be built. But again, I don't want to rehash what I've said. I think I've been clear about this. And you've been clear, Mr. Chair, about this. And I'm just saying that we need to be cautious on the amount of water that we approve for the fear of creating a secondary market for this water and other unintended consequences down the road. That's all what I'm saying.
And I don't disagree with you, Adam. And again, the fact that this is replacement water where we have replacement rates that the state contractors have already approved and look at every year, that these people will be billed, which is a pretty high rate for replacement, but the necessary rate. I think that's where our protection comes from at this time. And the fact that we're going to put this as an agenda item, look at this, we're tracking all of these requests so that we know what the amounts are, and that's going to be in the engineering report later on. I think we have enough protections right now, and going forward, if we want to place more on, that's great, but to have people go through the process, put in their applications, and then create more work for them, keep them coming back for future requests, I don't think that's what we're here to do. But we are here to protect the process, and we're trying to put future agenda items in place to look at this deeper. So that's my thoughts. Anyway, any further discussion on the motion to approve resolution number R24? Oh. Thank you. Okay. Motion to approve resolution R2104. That would be point of extraction applications 1 through 8. All in favor of that motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Riki,
Yes.
Director Calandry,
Dawn needs to unmute.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris,
Yes.
Director Calandry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Motion's passed unanimously. Thank you. We're now on item F, storage agreements. That's going to be a staff report by the engineer.
Yes, good morning. It's Phyllis Stannon. I'd like to quickly summarize the Upper Amargosa Creek Recharge Project. This is a recharge and recovery project along Amargosa Creek. It begins in your packet on page 214, and I might point you toward a location map because I think everybody would like to see where things are. The location map is on page 236. So the project consists of recharge from the California Aqueduct, and it's been going on, it's been being built and being evaluated for more than 10 years. There was an EIR done in 2009 and a very comprehensive USGS report done in 2015. It involves an existing now, a newly built pipeline from the California Aqueduct to convey water from the aqueduct down to 11 new recharge basins that cover about 16 acres. And I'm getting a lot of feedback. I hope everybody can hear me. There have been infiltration testing and pilot testing already done, and as a result, we have about 500 acre feet that have already been demonstrated to be recharged in this area. The water would be recovered by existing wells. And the project consists of 4 partners that are listed in your packet: the City of Palmdale, AVEC, District 40, and and the Palmdale Water District.
City of Palmdale.
Yes, the City of Palmdale and Palmdale Water District, AVEC and District 40. There has been, and then the recovery, of course, would be done down gradient of this recharge using existing production wells by those partners. And there are average recharge amounts per partner that are shown in your packet at the bottom of page 217 specifically. In general, we're looking at about 6,400 acre-feet a year on average. It's awfully hard to always predict future hydrology, but an average recharge of about 6,400 acre-feet a year. And there's been an actual maximum acre-feet a year number placed on this project as an estimate based on USGS analysis of the potential for liquefaction. So we're putting water in very highly permeable sands and gravels. This is at the very southern boundary of the subbasin, and as water comes out of the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains and into the basin, there is some really high permeability in the sands and gravels there, and recharge is shown to have very high infiltration rates in that area. And as a result of that, there's the potential for mounding in that area and the potential for liquefaction. And those permeable sands and gravels, if water levels were allowed to rise too high, could potentially become liquefied and subject to failure. So in order to protect against that impact, there's a maximum recharge that's been estimated at about 9,400 acre-feet a year. Of course, the project will be monitored. There are 3 monitoring wells now that are located along the recharge basins that will be used to evaluate mounding and changes in groundwater levels in the area associated with the recharge. Sticking with recharge for a second, from an engineer's point of view, we're always concerned to make sure that we are not competing in the subsurface for infiltration of natural recharge, because Upper Amargosa Creek, as you might know, provides natural recharge to the basin and is part of the native safe yield. And so our analysis looked at that, and we determined that because the depth to water is so deep in this area, more than 100 feet right out of the basin and then deepening a bit as you go to the north, that leaves plenty of room to make sure that there's no impacts related to decreased recharge that would occur naturally. So this is truly additive water, and it's coming into a sub-area where we do have pumping, and as a result of that, it's very needed in this sub-area. So from a recharge point of view, it's a very good location and a very good area with which to begin to recharge the basin. With respect to recovery, again, to be handled by existing wells, there are more than 50 wells distributed throughout the sub-area and in other sub-areas that could potentially serve as recovery for the recharged water. And in particular, I'd like to bring up a couple of comments that the advisory committee had regarding this project. The first one was that they were concerned because the initial storage agreement that we had put together suggested that there could be negative storage for emergency purposes. So a negative storage with respect to a banking project consists of when you are actually recovering more water than you have recharged yet. So it's a kind of timing situation. This language about negative storage was actually a holdover from a previous draft template of a storage agreement, and it turns out that it's not even applicable to this project. The application specifically says that recharge will occur before recovery and that there's no need for that component of negative storage. So that has simply been deleted from the storage agreement now. And so that takes care, in my opinion, of the advisory committee's first comment. Their second comment was regarding recovery. And one of the things that we mentioned in our memorandum of the analysis of this project is that it's a little bit difficult to actually do a quantitative assessment for any impacts from recovery, because of course we can't predict future hydrology. The timing of recharge is not known at this time, even though we've made some average estimates. And as a result of that, it isn't clear which well would be used specifically for recovery, or numbers of wells that would be used for recovery and where they might be. Of the project that prevents a very detailed and again quantitative analysis of a potential impact. But I will say this, the idea of being able to distribute recovery among a large well field and over a large area has some advantages when you think about material injury. There are two ways, of course, to recover recharged water. Sometimes banks will have recovery wells right at the banking facility so that they recharge right there. I mean, they recover right there where it's recharged. But groundwater moves. And so in reality, when you begin to recharge water at a recharge project, there's some mounding that occurs, but eventually that water will migrate down gradient with the groundwater system and move away from that area. So by the time you go back to recover that water with your recovery wells, you're not exactly recovering the same amount of water, and you might be concentrating pumping. So even though that makes it a little bit easier to analyze potential material injury, it probably is because it's more concentrated there. And so we thought it was reasonable that recognizing that the parties that are associated with this banking project have existing wells that are widely distributed throughout a large area, and they're going to continue to operate their system to optimize their ability to produce water for their customers. And so it seems reasonable to us that the recovery would occur likely over larger areas, and as a result of that, material injury would not likely occur. So that's our uncertainty associated with that, and I have to admit that their analysis wasn't specifically scoped with that objective in mind, but they do show in their assessment a large area that the water being recharged with the project would affect. And I believe that picture is in your package in one of the KJ analyses, and I'm just going to quickly scroll through this, and you can look on page 251. And 251 shows this modeled groundwater mound, and it gives some kind of understanding about the travel time over 20 years of the amounts of recharge that have been modeled. So this gives you some kind of an understanding that we can move the water over that period of time into the area where the wells would recover it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the report. Any further questions? Yes. I have had a request by Stan Powell. Stan, are you available with your question?
This is Stan Powell. Can you hear me?
Yes, Stan, we hear you very well.
Yes. First comment I wanted to make is I like the idea of this project. I have some comments and concerns, but I think it's the kind of project that's very helpful for the basin. The comments I wanted to talk about today were the comments that Phyllis has already discussed regarding recovery, which actually will help me be shorter in what I have to say. And some of this may be slightly repetitive, but please bear with me. The comments made at the advisory committee level basically were based on the Watermaster engineer's memorandum. And there's some important language on page 222 of the package here. And I want to just read a couple of sentences from that. Without known schedules of well production, it cannot definitively determine that no material injury could occur from excessive lowering of water levels associated with recovery of banked water. And if I were to try and condense that, I think what that says is, yes, there is the potential for material injury. Then the next sentence says, however, given that recovery of this water will occur over a period of time and distributed over large well fields, it seems reasonable that any potential for material injury associated with declining water levels can be managed and mitigated. Both those statements I agree with. My concern is I'm not sure if there's a sufficient. I agree that the ability to distribute the water geographically is very helpful for controlling material injury impacts. I'm concerned with the use of the words that the material injury can be managed and mitigated rather than will be managed and mitigated. And when I looked at in that same memorandum, this would be on page 223 of the agenda packet, talks about recommendations for conditions of approval. There are no conditions of approval that provide for how to mitigate those impacts. And so that's what I knew at the time of the advisory committee, and that's the comments that Phyllis has addressed. The Watermaster package had a storage agreement, post-storage agreement in it, which was the first time I saw that. I still have some concerns with the language in that agreement, which deal with possible impacts of recovery. And just to name a few of them, recital G, that's on page 262 of this package, and also term 3 on the same page, say that the Watermaster has found project will not cause material injury to the basin. But I think the words in the Todd Groundwater memorandum that said they could be managed still is true, and we haven't yet said how we're going to manage it, or even how we're going to track it to alert if we think there's a problem. Also, term 6 of the proposed storage agreement, which is on project operations, only seems to discuss recharge operations and doesn't discuss recovery operations. So there's no guidance there on any limits on operation. Term 9 on special monitoring requirements seems to focus on monitoring requirements that will help us manage the recharge and are unrelated to recovery. And so again, my concerns are, I don't think we've defined how we're going to control material injury. I think what Phyllis has told us all seem reasonable, but they're not very well developed. And so that is my concern. If I could take one more minute, I did want to mention 3 other things that I noticed about the storage agreement that I think should at least be considered. The first is recovery happens at existing wells. There are 4 parties that are participants in this program. One of the parties is the City of Palmdale. To the best of my knowledge, the City of Palmdale does not have a production right, and I'm not aware that they have a well. So I think there's a hole there. Do they have a well? Will it be done by exchange using someone else's well? The second concern I had to do with recital F. And recital F talks about whether or not the project is in an area that has had subsidence. And it says that the project is not in an area that has subsidence. And I certainly believe that's true about the recharge facilities. I'm not sure that that's true for all of the production wells that may be used to recover water. And I think that is potentially a factor that needs to be considered in a material injury analysis. And then the last comment I have, I know it shows up in term 5 of the storage agreement. It may show up elsewhere. There's use in this agreement of the term approved wells, that the existing wells are called out as approved wells. And I would just note that existing wells have gone through no approval process that I'm aware of with the Watermaster. So there may be a better term to use rather than approved wells. But again, the heart of my comment is whether we have provided enough guidance and direction for the material injury analysis on pumping wells. And with that, thank you to the board for letting me speak on this topic.
Thank you, Sam. And Phyllis, would you like to respond to any of that?
At the risk of repeating a little bit of information, I just wanted to say that, again, the existing well fields would not, I think it would be unreasonable to think that you were going to use just one well and pump that much more than would be previously pumped in order to recover a large percentage of this recharge water. This 9,400 acre feet a year divided over an area of a 20 and 30-year well field is, again, along with production rights, not likely to make that much difference with respect to the water levels. Again, we didn't do a quantitative assessment because there's no way to do that. It's impossible to predict future hydrology and future recovery requirements. I do think, however, that we need to offer as much flexibility as we can to these recharge and recovery projects. It does seem helpful to me that it's spread out over a large area. It does seem helpful to me that we don't have to invest additional funds and money into trying to recover the same molecules. It seems reasonable to me that we do this with all of the new production that we've approved, that we recharge in the areas that are most favorable for recharge within the basin and allow local recovery to occur in wells. So I think, managing this basin as a basin-wide process has some real merits, and providing that flexibility for recovery is important. And I think that, Mr. Powell might actually agree with all of that. I think his point is more to the point of, well, if that occurred, it could potentially be a material injury, and it's impossible for us to say that that it could not possibly occur. However, we don't think it's likely. And so, we have to be careful as engineers when we put the language in there. We can't just come out and say there's no possibility, it would be impossible for there to be material injury, because you can come up with scenarios that potentially could result in that. But I think that's unlikely. And so that's what we tried to convey. It's more of a qualitative assessment. Again, we don't have quantitative tools. But even if we did have quantitative tools in this case, I'm not 100% sure I would know how best to even try to analyze for all of the potential scenarios for recovery. And again, hoping this subbasin can have that flexibility, because we sure do need the opportunity to have projects like this in the basin.
Thank you very much, Bill. Stan, thank you for your comment.
Robert, this is Stan Powell. Can I have a minute to respond to that?
Yes, please.
Yes, and thank you, Phyllis. And yes, I understand what you're saying. It's very logical. And yes, I struggle with how you would do or frame a material injury analysis here. But I guess a topic then I would want to bring up, or at least have the board consider, if we don't know how to do the analysis now, does this storage agreement give the Watermaster sufficient flexibility on its part to come back, and if material injury does occur, which we didn't expect but we were unable to fully analyze, that we can go back under this storage agreement and attempt to impose additional conditions to address material injury that we may not know about today, but we may be able to observe in monitoring data in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Phyllis, can you comment?
Yes, it's my understanding, and I'm going to ask Craig to weigh in here, but it's my understanding from talking to Craig, he has assured me over and over and over again, because obviously we want to be careful when we do our material injury analyses going forward, and there are things that are very difficult to predict. And Craig has assured me in the past that if material injury occurs, then absolutely we still have the opportunity to address it.
And that's embedded in the judgments. Yes, to confirm what Phyllis is saying, Watermaster is absolutely designated as responsible for protecting the welfare of the basin, reporting to the court that exercises supervision. If material injury crops up unexpected from whatever source, the engineer has the duty under the judgment to bring that to the board's attention and to address it.
Thank you, Craig. Okay.
Chair Paris.
Any other
This
questions?
is Dennis.
Dennis, go ahead.
Craig just made the point that I was going to make. With this project, it's just going to be able to add to the water that's available for the partners to use. And it's not like there's no protection from a material injury. It just falls back onto the judgment because they're not in the same area as recharge. So all of the producers are subject to avoiding material injury to their neighbors. And that's still true for this project.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other comments from the public?
Rob, this is Stan again. Sorry to make one further comment.
Sure, Stan.
I guess maybe two comments. One is I'm spending some time on this because this really is a very large application. We're talking about more than 6,000 acre feet per year. That's more than the small pumpers and all the new production we've approved each year. That's more than half of the water allocated to the Exhibit 3 parties. So it's a large number, which is part of the reason that I do have some concern about it. And again, I'm appreciating the points for the proponents of the project because there are many ways that I like this project. But I also want the Watermaster board to remember that within a few years, a new provision of the judgment is going to kick in, which is the balance assessment. And in summary, what the balance assessment says, if certain kinds of material injury are happening, then everyone in the basin pays a balance assessment to attempt to address that material injury. So we are using existing wells, but we will certainly, I think, want to track if there are material injuries that have to be addressed through the balance assessment. That those material injuries that are really due to someone's project go back to the project proponents and not to water rights holders in general. And that's a very general comment. I don't know exactly how that might or might not apply to this application or any other situation right now. I just ask the board to remember that and keep it in mind. So thank you again.
Thank you, Stan. Any further discussion on item F?
Can you hear me, Mr. President? Robert Cush.
Yes, Robert, go ahead.
I just had a few comments on the proposed storage agreement, which begins at page 261 of the package. And I think we can deal with these by way of interlineation or correction. The first one is recital C, which acknowledges that under the judgment there are certain pre-existing banking projects that are recognized. I don't think this is one of them. And so I think recital C is probably more accurate, or at least superfluous in this agreement. Under the agreement itself, item number 3, no material injury, it recites that the project won't cause a material injury to the basin, but I think the language from the judgment is actually a material injury to any producer as opposed to the basin. Stan commented on this earlier, but paragraph 5, dealing with recovery, references wells or extraction facilities that are, quote, already approved and on file with the Watermaster. As Stan said, I don't know that to be a true fact. And so that probably ought to be removed. And then paragraph 13, again, deals with material injury to the basin. And I think that's more accurately material injury to any water producer. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Craig, your thoughts?
I agree with the producer versus basin. I see the recital in number C about pre-existing banking projects just being a statement of fact, not that this is an example of one. But the comments on paragraph 5, producer versus the basin, can be changed without materially changing the terms of the agreement. I think it would be more accurate.
I will just point out that in the judgment, section 3.5.18, the definition of material injury actually says material injury means impacts to the basin caused by pumping or storage of groundwater. And then it goes on to say that might harm the basin or producer or party or production right, but not limited to, etc. So I would just, I'm not an attorney, you guys, so if everybody wants to change it, that's fine with me. But I will just point out that the definition in the judgment actually defines, the details underneath the definition that says material injury means impacts to the basin. I think that's where that came from. So, and while I'm there, I'll just make one quick comment about existing projects. So I actually respectfully kind of disagree with Robert's assessment. I kind of do think this falls underneath the pre-existing project because the judgment doesn't list the projects. It simply lists the applicants or the parties that were participating, and because AVEC is a main participant and an applicant, AVEC was the applicant for the application in this project. And I just point out that the EIR for this project was actually completed prior to the final judgment. And so it was completed in 2019. And the USGS analysis, which came up with the maximum recharge amounts, I think that work was actually done prior to the final judgment as well. So thank you for those. Let me just make those two small comments.
Thank you, Phyllis. Craig, your thoughts? Any changes we should incorporate before we get approval?
Phyllis's recitation to the judgment is helpful. It reduces concern about the language use there. So I think with that, the only comment that I have is a question of fact on number 5 about the wells that are already approved and on file with the Watermaster. Mr. Cush said he didn't know whether that was true or not. Maybe Phyllis could comment on that. And with that, I'd say the agreement's acceptable as written.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that is a strange wording. I don't think there's an approval process for wells. I think it was just simply meant to, and I don't know who wrote it, but it sounds to me as if it was just meant more to just say these are already the existing wells that have been producing their production rights over time. So maybe that one sentence could be clarified because I don't think there's an existing approval process. I do think they're on file.
On file? I'm sorry. Okay. Matt has just recommended that we remove approve, and we can keep which are already on file with the Watermaster.
I think that would do it.
Yeah, he's shaking his head yes. Everybody's shaking their head yes. So we will, on item 5, remove the word approved and those two words. And so it will read, recovery, all stored water shall be recovered by the applicants utilizing their existing groundwater recovery facilities, which are already on file with the Watermaster. That will be the change, and Patty's noting that now. And the other two on water basin versus water producers, I think, or basin versus water producers, I think Craig says that's fine to leave the basin.
Or we could add, modify that to material injury to the basin and or producer.
Mr. President, may I, Robert Cush, if I might speak to that.
Go ahead, Mr. Quick.
Thank you. Phyllis is correct. The definition in the judgment of material injury goes on to talk about both harm to the basin and harm to producers. But section 14 of the judgment dealing with storage agreements talks specifically about material injury on any producer. That's the language used. And so I think you could do as the gentleman just suggested, which is referred to the basin or producer, or you could actually just put a period after the word material injury, and then by definition that includes both the basin and any producer.
Well, less words are always better, so I'm good with the period after material injury.
That would work.
Craig, you good with that?
Yes.
And
That'll be in
on 13.
paragraph 3 as well as paragraph 13.
So paragraph 3 would now read, no material injury. The applicants shall not operate the project in a manner that causes a material injury, period. And 13 would read, that's modification of storage agreement. If the Watermaster engineer determines based on new information not recently available on the effective date that the project will or may cause material injury, period, get rid of to the basin, the water, actually that would be a comma.
The comma, not a period, right?
Yeah, comma, not period. Sorry, Craig. Material injury, comma, to the Watermaster engineer shall notify. So those are the changes that we'll make. Patty, have they been made? Okay. And Craig, you good with those changes?
I am.
Okay, so that brings up.
Excuse me, this is Stan Powell. And while we're doing interrelations, I just wanted to note the concern I expressed on recital F, that the project is not within an area of the basin that has historically experienced subsidence or which appears to be susceptible to subsidence. I would certainly accept Phyllis's judgment whether that is true if we apply that to the recovery wells. But I think it's worth considering right now before approval. Thank you.
So, Craig, you want to comment on that?
Are you asking to strike it, Stan, or what is your request?
Yeah.
My belief is that some of those wells, in fact, are in an area that historically experienced subsidence, but I do not have the annual report in front of me to confirm that's true or not. So this is just a blanket statement that the project is not in such an area, and I'm not sure that is a true statement.
I agree with Stan. It's not a literally true statement for every single well. So you might either strike F, or you could add the recharge portion of the project. The recharge area of the project is not within an area of the basin that has historically experienced subsidence. I don't know that that matters. It might be best to just strike F.
Craig, your thoughts?
My thought is to add the phrase, the recharge area of the project is not within the area of the basin that has historically experienced subsidence or which appears to be susceptible to subsidence.
So the F would then read, the recharge area of the project is not within an area of the basin that has historically experienced subsidence or which appears to be susceptible to subsidence. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Patty, you got that? Okay. Very good discussion. We've changed the resolution as discussed. So we're now on item F, consideration possible action on the resolution number R2105 as changed, approving the storage agreement application. Is there a motion to approve resolution number R2105?
Yes, I'll move to approve R25 as amended.
Moved by Kathy, seconded by Is there a second to the motion?
This is Adam. I second it.
Second by Adam. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of approving resolution number R2105? By roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosi,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. And at this time, we've gone about 2 hours and 10 minutes. The chairman and staff have gone beyond their water storage capacities, and they're asking for a 5-minute break. So we.
All right.
Calandri, Director Urosi,
I am here.
Director Paris is here. And Director Calandri?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just quickly, I don't know so far as action. I want to be cautious. This is Urosic. I do have a hard stop at 1. I hate to drop that on you, Rob, but wanted to let you know.
And I think you're, if I've looked at the role, we have your alternates are present. At least one is. So let's get moving. Item G, proposed 2021 replacement water assessment rate. That's going to be Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to present today the replacement water rates for the calendar year of 2021. So we've been talking about new production, and this is where that new production would come from for any water pumped in 2021 where new production or replacement water applies. So we have about a 2% increase in the rate overall compared to 2020. And I'd like to just draw attention. In fact, we had in the admin meeting with Director Ariki and Urosic, they wanted to make sure that it was clear that the replacement is 1-to-1, water for water. There is a factor in here where we talk about a 10% increase in the cost for water delivered. And that's on that inside AV State Water Contractor Association boundaries. Just want to note that that's because for every 10 acre feet that we bring in, there's 1 acre foot that gets lost to evaporation. So it ends up taking 11 acre feet to get 10 acre feet in the ground, and then the state water contractors are compensated by that uptick in price of 10%. But the water traded out in replacement water is 1-to-1. As we move along, just like to remind you that for inside the basin, that's the cost for delivering raw water, for inside the AV State Water Contractor Association boundaries, that's the cost for delivering the raw water. Outside the boundaries, there's an additional factor because those properties have not paid property tax towards the state water project. So there has to be an additional cost to them. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve resolution number R2106, approving the 2021 replacement water assessment rate?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
Second by Adam.
Second by Adam. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasi,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. And then on item H, USGS Groundwater Monitoring Program. That will be Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
All right, thank you. So included in your board packet, beginning on page 273, is a staff report followed by a cooperative agreement between the Watermaster and the USGS. Just to refresh everybody's memory, back at the October Watermaster meeting, we teed this item up for discussion, and the board agreed that the Watermaster would take on the administrative role of administering the program with the USGS, previously administered by the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association. So we worked with the USGS on switching the program over from the association to the Watermaster, and that's the agreement you have before you. The funding arrangement would remain the same as we've seen the last several years, being that the association would pick up 50% of this cost. The Antelope Valley Irwin group would pick up 25% of the cost, and the Antelope Valley Watermaster would be at 25% as well. So our approved 2021 budget does include funds to cover the 25% share. Some comments brought up by the advisory committee as well as the administrative committee of directors Ariki and Jurasic is to make sure that we try to get some commitment from the other two funding sources for a 3 to 5 year period. The agreement before you is only a 1-year agreement, which we do have the funding commitment in place to cover this 1 year. So upon approval, staff would work with the other two entities and work on a longer term financial commitment to the program. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? And is there any action required? Yeah.
Yes, we need a board motion and second and a roll call vote to approve the joint funding agreement with the USGS.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the USGS joint funding groundwater monitoring program? John, you need to mute. That's a lot of noise. Yeah, and you're going to have to vote. Is there a motion to approve the USGS joint funding agreement for water resource investigation?
Go ahead, Kathy.
I'll move to approve.
Motion made by Kathy, and I think second by Derek.
Yeah, I guess I was going to make the motion, but I think it's based upon, I'll second with Matt's comments from the advisory committee and the administration review of our thoughts on that. I will second that motion.
Any further discussion off that? Call vote.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
Director Ariki?
Yes.
Director Clancy?
Yes.
Director Jurasic?
Yes.
Director Paris?
Yes, motion's carried unanimous. We're now on administrator's report. Go ahead, Matt.
Yes, just a couple of quick items. A reminder that all the production reports are due for calendar year 2020. Those are due by March 1st, I believe. And then also, we recently sent out the fixed administrative assessment to all the producers. So we're starting to see those payments trickle in. So that's all I have to report. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, hi. I just have one quick thing, and we've already talked about this before. In your packet, you have a list of all of the new production applications that have been approved to date. They started in 2018 and they go through 2020, and that's on page 286 of your packet. As we had mentioned previously in this meeting, the total to date is about the total as of the end of 2020 is about 366 acre feet. That is overwhelmed by one application. If you look about a third of the way up, you'll see that in September of 2020, we had one application for 215 acre feet. So that number is actually quite a bit lower, about 151 acre feet. We're also, as Kate mentioned previously, beginning to track this amount of production in each one of the sub areas. And to date, the central sub area wins by far. They have about 2/3 of the amount. If you take out the Bannock production, if you put the Bannock production back in, it's about a quarter. So we are going to, at the direction of the board, we are going to start considering, I think on a more quantitative basis as best we can, the cumulative impacts of all of this production, and we will certainly keep the board posted as to total amounts. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Very helpful. We're now on item 11, General Counsel's report.
Yes, I just update on the court hearing on December 8th. The court considered several motions to intervene that this board had already approved. The Gene Wheeler Farms matter, U.S. Solar, and Rabbit Brush, and approved all the motions to intervene, and also set the resolution of SCI Joshua Memorial Park status in the case for resolution by an evidentiary hearing on February 5th. Since that time, all the parties involved with SCI in negotiating what its production right might be have gotten together, signed a stipulation that probably eliminates the need for an evidentiary hearing on February 5th. And as a result of that agreement and the distribution of the evidence to support their production right, SCI will be, if the court agrees, awarded a production right of 38 acre feet a year ultimately. They had initially requested 122 acre feet, and this is a substantial reduction, and done in the cooperative spirit with other parties to the case. So I think it's a good result all around. You'll recall the number of times we discussed SCI on the calendar before. They were a non-stipulating party to the judgment and came in, got a production right, and then we stipulated to them intervening as a party. And then the issue of what amount of production right they'd be given has been subject to negotiation, led mostly by the landowners and public entities that have agreed to stipulate to, based on the evidentiary proof offered by SCI, that a reasonable production right would be 38 acre feet ultimately. So that's the report on the court hearing. We've already covered rules and regulations. I have a couple of things for next month on the enforcement issue that'll be teed up more. There's some appellate deadlines that have already been exceeded that I'll discuss next month when we talk about enforcement of the judgment. And that's all I have to report at this time.
Great, thank you, Craig.
Thanks.
Now, board members' requests for future agenda items. Patty, we got the that we talked about.
Yeah, we've got some stuff regarding the damage prices.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Directors, any other future agenda items you'd like to put on? Hearing none.
Yeah, no, this time.
Okay. Hearing none, we're going to adjourn right before 1 o'clock for Derek. So going once, going twice, meeting's adjourned. Thank you everybody for attending and for your patience.
Thanks, Rob. I guess I just have to say,
Thank you, Rob.
say 1 o'clock and we'll be done by then.
Derek, next time say 12.
No, okay, I will. I will. All right. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.